Hello, Jan from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, the Loft Warehouse, your favorite property tax nerd. And today I am going to go over how to read your assessment notice and if you should appeal your taxes based on your updated assessment for the coming year, under what circumstances you should appeal and how to appeal. So if you got one of these bad boys in the mail and want to know exactly how to read it and what to do with it, then this video is for you. Stay tuned. Let's get started. This is a 2023 City of Detroit tax assessment notice. And from what I have seen, they look the same throughout the state of Michigan. So whether you are watching this video in a different year or you own property in a different municipality, this video should still be relevant and give you the required information necessary to interpret your tax assessment notice, and also give you further instructions on how and when to appeal your property. So let's start up at the top left corner. This is who sent you the assessment notice, in this case, the City of Detroit, and their address. Over to the right, the parcel identification area. Parcel code number is also called tax identification number. It is a numerical way to represent and identify your property outside of the common address, like 123 Main Street, or however the post office recognizes your property. That will be here. And then over in this quadrant, the owner or person named on the assessment roll, you want to just make sure that that information is correct, that the name and address, because you want to make sure that you are getting your assessment notices and your tax bills in a timely manner. If you have the neighborhood enterprise zone tax abatement, you will have two of these forms, and you just want to make sure that both of them have the correct contact information on them, because sometimes that is not always the case. Now let's move over to the principal residence exemption area. We are going to be concerned with this homeowner's principal residence. I'm not going to talk about these other exemptions because I don't know what they are. I'm a residential real estate agent. And so homeowner's principal residence, 100% means that you occupy 100% of the property as your primary residence. If you lived in a duplex, it might say 50% because the other half of the property is occupied by a tenant. And so you just want to make sure that this represents what your property actually represents. So if it is your primary residence, or if it is not, then it would say 0. And if this is not correct, then you want to work with the assessor to get it corrected. Moving down to legal description, this is another way to recognize your property outside of the regular mailing address. This is going to refer to the lot and the subdivision, when the property was originally created from most likely farmland. Just another way to represent your property, not really anything you need to be concerned with. And then moving down here, the property classification, it will say residential or commercial or what have you. If you have an NEZ, it will say the NEZ and what type. In this case, this property has the NEZ homestead. If you have an NEZ and you have two of these assessment notices, then one of them will say NEZ and one of them will not. It will also tell you what the prior year classification was in case that there was a change in classification. So it's just, again, wanting to make sure everything looks correct. And then this is the real meat of the document. So we'll go to that. So I'm just going to start from the bottom and work up. So number 5, there was or was not a transfer of ownership in the property. In this case, there was not. But if there was, then this form is going to look a little bit different, and we'll go through that. Next, line number 4, the state equalized value. So the state equalized value is basically how the city or municipality recognizes the property from a taxable standpoint. So in this case, it's going to show you what the previous amount was compared to the current amount, and if the property gained in value significantly from year to year, then it is going to go up significantly. In this case, it has gone up $46,800. The state equalized value is actually half of what the municipality considers to be the true cash value of the property also sometimes known as the fair market value. So in this case, if you double this number, 110,900, and you get 221,800, that means the municipality considers this property to be worth 220,000 and some change. So moving up to number 2, which is assessed value. This is going to be the same as the state equalized value. And moving on to number 1, the taxable value. So the taxable value is what your taxes are actually based on. The taxes that you pay are based on, irrespective of the state equalized value. So if you've owned the property for a long period of time, your taxable value could be significantly lower than the state equalized value, as is the case for this particular property. Now, the state equalized value can go up and down depending on the market value and how property values are behaving in this particular area, but the taxable value can only go up 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. I was a little surprised because I figured since the rate of inflation is so high this year, it's like definitely over 6%. I was expecting this bill to be affected by a rate of by 5%. But if we look down here, the 2023 inflation rate multiplier is 1.05 or 5%, whichever is less. And apparently the inflation multiplier rate is 1.05. So that was a bit of a surprise this year, but that is what our taxable value is based off of. So if you multiply last year's taxable value by 1.05, you will get this number, 12,066, and that is what the tax bill is based off of. It tells you right here the difference between last year's tax bill and this year's tax bill is $32 based on this particular taxable value. Now, if there was a change in ownership from 2022 to 2023, your property has been subject to uncapping. And in the state of Michigan, whenever a property transfers hands, if the taxable value is lower than the state equalized value, the taxable value will uncap and become the exact same value as the state equalized value. And then next year, it can only go up 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less, regardless of how much this number jumps. So if you had just purchased your property in 2022, you will see that this number, the taxable value and the state equalized value are the same. And you will probably see a much bigger number here to reflect not only the increase in value of the property, but also the uncapping. If this is a giant shock to you, then you probably were not understanding how our assessments and our tax system works in the state of Michigan. It's usually predictable what the uncapping of the property will be, not always predictable how much the property value has increased from year to year. So it's definitely something to be mindful of when buying a property. Make sure that you ask a real estate professional to help you interpret that, and also to check with the city assessor to see what kind of information they can give you. So, should you appeal your property taxes? So, if this number right here, if you double it, and that number is more than your property is worth, then you have a good case for appeal. So in this case, if I double this number, I get 220,000 and some change. Let's say my property is only worth 200,000 because that's what I bought it for, or that's what Zillow says it is, or that's what my realtor says it is. Significantly different, then you probably have a pretty good case for appeal. If you are wanting to appeal your property tax assessment because you just think you're paying too high of a tax bill, not necessarily a great idea. You have to have, just because you think your taxes are too high, if they're based on an accurate assessment, then you don't have a good case for appeal. So I would caution you to make sure that your property is overassessed and you can prove it. Now, if you have the neighborhood enterprise zone tax abatement, then you want to add the two numbers together, state equalized value for 2023 on both tax assessment documents, and then double it. Now, if you are not planning to sell your property this year, then your taxes are only going to be based on this number. Even if your property is overassessed, it's not going to affect your tax bill. However, I always recommend that you consider appealing your property tax assessment, even if you are not planning to sell this year, because what if that changes at some point throughout the year? People's jobs change, people's family situations change, and you may be looking at needing to sell your property. And it's always best to be transferring a property to a new buyer based on an accurate assessment. If the property is overassessed, then the buyer now has to deal with having to appeal their property taxes a year from now. It's not always that desirable. It's just easier if you were to take care of it. So I always recommend, if you are overassessed, to consider appealing your property tax assessment. Now, how do you do that? So the document is always going to give you information on how and when you have to do that. So you must appeal during the assessor's review period. The review period in the city of Detroit, it may be different for other municipalities. So please read your specific document. It tells you that the appeals must be done between February 1st and February 22nd. It is cut off after the 22nd. You no longer have a choice after that. So that's it. Easy, right? Well, if you need any further assistance, like figuring out what your property value is, please do reach out to me. I would be more than happy to help. If you are anywhere in Southeast Michigan, I can definitely help you with that. You can email me at jan@theloftwarehouse.com. And if you are viewing this on any other platform like LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and you want to shoot me a DM through those platforms, that also works as well. But feel free to reach out to me. I would be more than happy to help you. And if you are getting value from these videos, please let me know so I can record some more of them. I have more planned, and I definitely appreciate your feedback. Signing off for now, your favorite property tax nerd, Jan from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, The Loft Warehouse.